Cian, good morning to you. How you doing?
I'm doing all right. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. So we have actual football news to talk about from the NFL over the next 3 days as the draft, and what a weird draft it's going to be, but as it actually happens. Before we get to that, though, the big news from the last 48 hours or so is that Rob Gronkowski is back in the NFL. Was this a surprise, and is he going to be any good?
Yeah, I have to try and be serious though when I'm still laughing at Owen and that great video. Yeah, Gronk has come back, and it's kind of not a surprise, and it is a surprise a little bit because Gronk has been talking about coming back for the last year, ever since he left. Every other week he's teasing it. Every other week he's talking to TMZ, or he's in his WWE interview saying, "Oh, whenever he talks about anything, he talks about how he played football and what he did with the Patriots." When he was a Fox analyst, it was a little bit of a disaster. Gronk with a microphone trying to do actual analysis is not the greatest thing in the world, as it turns out. And this kind of felt a little bit inevitable, like Gronk doesn't really have anything else to do, or he doesn't have anywhere else to go, which is a little bit sad in itself. But then you have to look back on why he retired. He retired because he could no longer move properly. He had become this animated earning board where his back was always straight no matter what he was doing, and he couldn't really run or turn like he used to. Like, this is the greatest tight end ever, and it's hard to really argue one way or another against him in that. Like, Tony Gonzalez had a longer career, had probably a more productive career, but Gronk at his peak is better than anyone who's ever played that position, including the likes of Shannon Sharpe. You can go all the way back as far as you want. Gronk is the best player ever, but he's not that anymore, and he hadn't been that for a few years before he just came back now. The Patriots were trying to trade him a couple of years ago, had a deal agreed with the Lions, and Gronk said he wouldn't play with a different quarterback outside of Tom Brady, and that's why he's come back now, and only the Tampa Bay Buccaneers were the only team he was willing to go to. So this is a bit kind of exciting. You want to see Gronk again, but it's a little bit sad as well because you're not seeing actual Gronk again. It's not like it's going to be the same guy. It's a little bit like watching Queen these days live.
Does anybody still do that?
Hey, they still tour.
Do they? Right, wow. Sorry, you've thrown me there now.
I think it's Adam Lambert. It's probably a bit of an insult. I think he's pretty good, apparently.
Okay. Is there no possibility that a year off and rest has actually helped his back recover a little bit? Like, I don't know if the year off would include actually getting into a WWE ring and the athleticism that you require for that, and the possibility of, because we know that those guys end up getting injured as well. So it wasn't like he was doing nothing, but by all accounts he's slimmed down a bit and is going to have to do something to put on some weight over the next while, which I'm sure they're very good at in the NFL, so that'll be fine. But is there a possibility that the year off has actually allowed his body to heal to a point where he might be explosive again?
Well, the year off is the biggest thing that's coming from that is how skinny he is. So Gronk got really, really thin as soon as he finished football. It was like a month out and he was still talking about whether he was going to retire or not. Everyone saw a picture of him and was like, yeah, he's retired. Because he was down to, I would guess, probably 185, 180 pounds, which is a wide receiver level when you're that tall, which is, I have no idea what that is in stone. I've been working in pounds for so long. But basically he needs to be about 250, probably 240 to be an actual effective NFL tight end. So that's adding a huge amount. That's probably 20 kg, something like that, adding to your body. So he needs to go from being a really skinny, really great in shape. Like if you saw him on the street over the last year, you think, oh my God, that guy's in amazing shape. When you see him in actual football NFL shape, you would just realize how massive he is. And I don't think he can get back to that point. Being off for a year in terms of getting healthy, I think that would help a lot in terms of getting healthy. But I think once you start playing football again, you start taking those hits and you start having those practice sessions where you wake up the next day and you literally can't move. So I don't think it's actually going to help him be better in football and be prepared for football. He's going to be, as soon as he starts playing again, I think he'll be back to that rigid figure. It's a back injury, like obviously no medical degree on the wall behind me, but it's a back injury. It's not like it was a knee injury where you talk about, or a hip even with Tua, where like we can transition to the draft here straight away. With Tua, he's got a major hip injury and it's a major concern. The team that takes him is probably not going to start him and give him an extra year away from that surgery, away from the rehab. With Gronk, it's my back, he had a bunch of different other injuries, but mostly it's the back, and he's had back surgeries as well. So I don't think extra time is really going to change anything for him.
Can I put it to you? You bring up Tua. So Tua is this absolutely sensational quarterback who, up until the point of his injury, looked like he was going to be at least in the conversation for the number one and probably the number one overall pick. Over the last 18 months, he's kind of been the anointed one who was going to be the number one pick here. Is what's going on at the moment actually playing into the team who takes him's hands? He's falling, his draft stock is falling because people haven't been able to actually test him with their own doctors. He will have an enforced period of rest and recuperation anyway. There's a small possibility there's no football played this year. It's a small possibility. It's not beyond the bounds possibility that there is no season. So you're looking at a period of enforced rest for a player who it looks like was absolutely sensational. If he was to get back to that level again, there's a possibility that you're getting him at a bit of a snip at a discounted price.
Yeah, I think there's two ways to look at this. As Tua, you get that extra time and you won't be under any pressure to do anything over the immediate future. But then the other side of that is being an NFL quarterback, there's a huge amount to learn. You have to develop individually as a player, but you also have to figure out how your team functions. You have to build relationships with everyone around you. You have to learn from your quarterback's coach. The off-season reps is always a big issue when you talk about CBAs, because Aaron Rodgers, for example, has talked about this, where he needs as much time as possible before the start of a season to work on his timing and rhythm. Because NFL windows, throwing into NFL windows, it's not like throwing into college windows where you've got to have perfect timing and you've got to be in sync with your receivers who are reacting to specific coverages that are being called. So you lose all of that preparation time. Let's imagine we get back just in time for the start of September, or we have a little bit of a delay. The NFL isn't going to waste any time in getting something back, getting a product back on the air. They're going to want to get a season in. So it's not going to be a case of, hey, we'll give you the next 6 months and have your normal off season. We can just start again later next year. They're going to want to have to start. So in that instance, Tua will be forced to get ready very quickly. The dependence, or the big caveat of all of this then, is who drafts him. Because if the Lions draft him, then he's going to get to sit regardless. So whether the season starts on time or not is irrelevant to him. He won't be starting until the following year. If the Dolphins start him, they will talk about sitting him, but every team that's talked about sitting their starter for a year, outside of the Kansas City Chiefs, who did it with Patrick Mahomes when they had Alex Smith, every single team that's been bad, that's drafted a quarterback at the very top, said they were going to sit him for a year, have wound up starting him over the first couple of games. So if he's in a position where he can actually compete for a starting job, or he's in a position where a team will need a reason to be optimistic or need a reason for a boost, it's going to be a problem because he's going to have his off-season taken away, and then he's going to get forced in early prematurely. And regardless of his health, then he's trying to play catch-up because he's not fully familiar with the position or with his team. So there are positives, there are negatives. I think in general, if you're drafting Tua, you have to be thinking long-term rather than short-term. So sitting him for a full year, regardless of who you got, has to be the way you go. It's just a difficult thing to do because when it's a talented quarterback, everyone thinks that will fix every problem. So if you've got that as your backup, it's very easy for the coach to go, oh, let's throw him in and get excited.
Cian, can I ask you just to explain what sort of quarterback Tua is? And secondly, is he deserving of one name status? Is he on a Zion, LeBron level when it comes to American sports? Or is it just because his surname is hard to pronounce and that's why we're just calling him Tua?
It's 100% because Tagovailoa is hard to pronounce. Interestingly, he's a left-handed quarterback, which is something the NFL hasn't had since 2006. You would think, like, with only 32 positions, with only 96 on a roster, that you would have a left-hander somewhere, but there hasn't been one since 2006, apparently. I read that this week, and I was surprised. He's the best comparison for him, I think. I'm actually not sure there's a great comparison. Maybe, like, you're not really looking at Mahomes. He's not got that crazy arm talent. He's not that guy who throws off of ridiculous platforms and extends plays outside of their structure and outside of the pocket. He's got a level of athleticism that he can move, but he's not really a rushing threat. Like Joe Burrow's probably a better athlete, even pre-injury. So he's more of a runner, even though he's not really a runner either. There isn't really a Lamar Jackson or anyone like that. So he's a very accurate passer. He's a very intelligent passer, I think. He played in an Alabama offense that was spread out. It was Nick Saban a couple of years ago got beaten by Johnny Manziel at Alabama. Nick Saban used to always want to have the biggest guy and run right through you. And that's why you had Derrick Henry and Mark Ingram. You had all these running backs who would just come in and literally get off the bus and just be terrifying because they would just run through everyone. And he completely changed his approach a couple of years ago to go to a spread offense where everyone got smaller, everyone got quicker. And when I was watching Tua, one of my biggest takeaways was that the offense was beautifully designed. So when they had a difficult down and distance, or they had a specific play or alignment, they had play calls where it was easier on the quarterback to make a diagnosis and get the ball out. So I thought he was very, very good at executing them, but I didn't necessarily see him dropping back in the pocket and having everything go wrong around him and making it all work at times, which is what you want to see. Because if you go back to the Super Bowl this year, Patrick Mahomes was getting his ass kicked throughout the first 3 quarters, just getting beaten up, getting hit over and over and over again. And then his offensive line was getting beaten because Nick Bosa was there constantly, and he was able to adjust and make incredible plays. Now, you don't expect that from rookies or from guys in college anyway, but when it's a top draft pick, you want to see that. And I didn't necessarily see that a whole lot. So even if Tua was fully healthy, I would still have Joe Burrow ahead of him. If he was fully healthy, I think he would easily be worthy of a top 10, top 12 pick, and he's way better than a guy like Justin Herbert, who's immediately behind him.
That's very interesting. Just one other one I have on him in general. What's the current record at the moment in the NFL in terms of first-round quarterback picks? Are they good or are they not so good at picking at the moment?
It's a very low rate, especially when you're taking at the very top. Like a couple of years ago, and this is a big problem. Well, not a big problem. It's just a thing that happens during the draft cycle where every quarterback every year has to be talked up as, oh, this is a great quarterback. And inevitably, because of the hype of the draft, because it's so long of a build-up, and because there are specific people who cover the draft rather than the NFL, they push these guys' hype so much because they want to sell them and sell the hope that they get put on the same level as all the quarterbacks who have come before them. And that's just not the case with the NFL. So a couple of years ago, you had Lamar Jackson's draft with Josh Allen, Sam Darnold, Baker Mayfield, and Josh Rosen. And all of those were pushed forward as these are great quarterbacks. This is a 5-quarterback class. These are all going to be great NFL quarterbacks. And we got one. Lamar Jackson, and he was the last one out of that group to go in the first round. So the rest of them haven't turned out and haven't really panned out. A couple of them are playing for their starting jobs in Mayfield. Darnold. Allen is just a freak athlete who's kind of been on a good team, so people have been misjudged into thinking he's a good quarterback, and Josh Rosen's career is basically already over. So you have to be very wary of when these quarterbacks are being pushed up. And it's also the fact that you're drafting a developmental prospect. You're not drafting fully developed players. You're not drafting 100% of what you're going to get eventually. You're taking guys who are going to get better. Like picking anyone in any form of life at 20 and 21, you're never going to get who they're going to be when they're 25, 26, 27, 28. Physically, mentally, every single aspect of their life is going to be completely different. I think if you look at the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now, Lamar, like I said, didn't go in the top 30 of his draft. He was at the end of the first round. And the Ravens themselves picked Hayden Hurst ahead of him. They've traded Hayden Hurst away. So the Ravens didn't have any greater insight than anyone else either. They just got lucky like every team does when they're picking a quarterback. Patrick Mahomes was, I think, 12th or 13th. The Chiefs traded up to take him. So 11 teams passed over him. The Texans traded, or not the Texans, the Bills, I think it was, traded that pick away. So they literally said, no, we look at Mahomes, we don't want him. And Mahomes, when he went to the Chiefs, it was a perfect fit. If he had gone somewhere else, he might not have developed the way he needed to develop. And then you look at Aaron Rodgers, who's like the 3rd best quarterback in the league right now. He fell to 21 or 22 in the draft, and Alex Smith was the number 1 overall pick that year, and it was consensus as far as I remember. Maybe not fully consensus, but it was really a strong belief that Alex Smith was better than Aaron Rodgers, and no one would ever say that now. So this is 100% a lottery. This is 100%. You can make educated guesses. You can talk informatively about all these prospects. But at the end of the day, there are people paid millions of dollars to do this, and the guy who's considered the very best at doing it is about 50% hit rate. So you're just hoping more than you are expecting.
It's interesting about the Mahomes not going to somewhere else and failing if he'd been put straight up, because I wonder if a lot of these quarterbacks would actually have been better if they'd been able to slowly acclimatise to what life in the NFL was like. And it brought to mind the lads' conversation about The Last Dance and how Jordan needed that second year in college to become the superstar who was NBA ready, and he needed to go to a team that was in the NBA that wasn't, well, in fairness, he carries the team straight away, but he wouldn't have been able to carry that team straight away if he hadn't had that second year in college where he actually becomes an alpha personality. And I wonder if there are a load of quarterbacks who were actually very good quarterbacks, and the difference is that the coaching staff and the people around them were the wrong people. And that's the bit that becomes a lottery, and that's the bit where culture becomes important, and where organisations, if you go to the right organisation, you're going to be okay. And that's the bit
Jordan, this is a good draft to talk about that, because the Miami Dolphins were supposed to be tanking for Tua. Like, Tua was such a popular draft pick last year before the season had started that tanking for Tua existed. That kind of thing hadn't existed until there was a suck for Luck, which was Andrew Luck. It's a campaign that we want to lose this year to get the best quarterback prospect. And the Dolphins ended up winning a bunch of games during the season, and now they're trying to trade back up for to get the pick, the guy they were supposed to be tanking for in the first place. And part of that tanking was getting rid of Ryan Tannehill and sending him to Tennessee. So Ryan Tannehill was in Miami as a quality quarterback. His quality, like, he wasn't healthy when they traded him, but his quality of play had always been really high. The Dolphins as a franchise have been so poorly run. Their offensive line coach was literally doing cocaine instead of doing his job. They were so poorly run that they couldn't build a competent offense around Ryan Tannehill. Ryan Tannehill goes to Tennessee, gets to the playoffs with Tennessee, is taking a pay cut just to play there, and now he signs a $20 million per year deal. So, like, Ryan Tannehill is the perfect example of what you're talking about. I don't really necessarily believe there's one specific way to do this. I think players will turn up and will eventually become what they become. It's how you build a team around them. I think with a guy like Jordan, like, obviously had to go through the Pistons years where they had the Jordan rules of trying to beat the crap out of him, and that helped him develop who he became. But I have a tendency to believe, like, a guy like Jordan is going to find a way no matter what. He's a bit like a stream. He's going to meander through whatever comes in front of him. Whereas LeBron went into the league, started straight away and carry his team. When we're not doing a Jordan-LeBron debate because that's all over American sports right now. But when LeBron came into the league, he was carrying the Cavs straight away. He came straight from high school. He didn't have any of that stuff. So I do think there is a superstar level where guys become what they become. In football, what you're talking about is massively important, but it's more important about how you build the team around them rather than develop the individual player.
Okay, Kim, we're nearly completely out of time here. So tell me, what do you think is the biggest surprise that happens tonight? What do you think will be the biggest shock if something happens in the first hour tonight and you're like, wow, I did not expect that?
Well, there's some nonsense being talked about the Dolphins trading up for an offensive tackle. So basically, we spent most of this podcast talking about Tua, and the draft would start with a team trading up to pick someone else instead of Tua after talking about Tua over 12 months. The draft itself, it goes Joe Burrow, who's going to the Bengals, that's guaranteed. Chase Young is 99.9% going to Washington at 2. So the draft itself starts at the 3rd overall pick. The talk is that the Lions and the Giants are desperate to trade down. The Dolphins want to get the 3rd pick while keeping their 5th pick. So it's all drama, it's all strategy. It's going to be shocking and surprising no matter what, because every single year we go in thinking we know everything and we find out we know nothing.
Cian, enjoy it. It's proper sports to talk about tonight. I mean, it's not really sport, but it's sports administration and the signing of players. It's the best we've got. Any port in the storm. Thanks a million for joining us this morning. Cheers.
There's lots of action in the transaction. That's the way we put it.
There,
thanks,
perfect. It's 9:41 a.m. this morning. If you want to get involved, you can text us here, 087 180 180. Oh, and the big news is that the original national video has just broken 200,000 views. Do you think we can get this to 1 million? Do you think we can get it picked up by one of the American sites like, here, this is a bit about what you're missing?
No, absolutely not. No, it's not going to. It will get maybe 1,000 or 2,000 more, and then it will thankfully plateau. And we are not doing a 2nd anniversary or a 3rd anniversary, so that is the one positive I'm taking away from today. This hopefully is this book closed. I was going to say very enjoyable book, but really it's a rather humiliating book has finally closed.
No, we'll do it again next year at the same time. Same time, same place. Right, major spoiler alert here. It is 9:41 on Thursday, the 23rd of April. Better Call Saul has emerged as the current best show on TV. If you haven't watched it, get on it. You can watch our series-by-series recaps and player ratings as you go. The 5th series wrapped this week. Here are our fresh off the press, on the whistle, player ratings, but we do need to give you massive spoiler warning here. If you haven't seen Better Call Saul, turn off. If you have seen it, you're going to really enjoy this. This is the part of the chat. The full thing is up on YouTube and on offtheball.com, and the podcast is on the way.